AI is being used as well to detect things well in advance of what our typical systems afford. And so, there's some technologies that can be used to detect Parkinson's or Alzheimer's in 15 years before they develop. Really interesting technologies that even use voice. They analyze your voice and they're able to detect and help with diagnosis in areas that we don't have great criteria for yet. So now all of a sudden we're getting all of this data and realizing, hey, that matters. Actually, the body is this really complex system, and even these small changes are reflections of this root cause disease process.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Humans in the Loop podcast. I'm super excited to be here. As you can see, we are joined by our second ever guest, as well as my co-host, Janine Waitman. I will introduce Dr. Michelle Prentice in a second. But before, we're going to talk about, last episode, we talked about the mind. Today, we're talking about the body. Why are we talking about the physical body? Because in such an AI-driven world, I think I keep hearing, at least, I don't know if you guys are, this question. It's very philosophical, but important. What makes humans different, unique from machines? And one of the answers to that is that we are embodied people. We physically interact with in a body and as a result have lived experiences. So my big question today that I want to get into with Janine and Dr. Michelle Prentice is, how do we better care for our bodies? How do we better strengthen them um, as we increasingly are pulled into a digital world where, I don't know about you guys, but I get stuck wrangling my emails or texting or a little bit of doom scrolling. And I'm like, okay, I got to move. I got to take care of my body because movement is part of what it takes to survive. So, before I turn it over to you, Michelle, with some questions, just as a bit of introduction, Dr. Michelle Prentice is a family physician, but she's also a board certified lifestyle physician. She will explain what that means. I think it might be a bit self explanatory, but she's also an innovator. She's an advocate. She'd shaped national conversations in the US about bringing lifestyle medicine into the mainstream clinical practice. Um, and she is one of the most curious people I know. And that is one of the biggest reasons I have her here today, because when you talk to Michelle, I was telling Janine before, our coffee dates are at least 3 hours long. And so we'll try to keep this episode at least a third of that. So, and then Janine here, as always, to bring in the KM spin on things and how we can take what Michelle is saying and put it into practice in our lives. So, Michelle, welcome to the Humans in the Loop podcast. We're so excited that you're here. I think we're going to have a good conversation.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Janine and Syria. I'm so excited and to see where this conversation goes and how our different viewpoints will intersect. So,
Amazing. But before we get into the serious stuff, and hopefully, if you didn't have a chance to prepare, something will come to mind. But we always start by asking, what's the crack? What's the fun, exciting thing and we have started this pattern of ending it by saying, and that's the crack. So we're very curious. Janine, you can share yours too. What's been your crack lately?
Yeah, will I go first on this one?
Okay,
Yeah.
something good. You've been
Oh,
prepared.
yeah. So, as you know, I play in a band and we're getting ready for our gig at the end of May. And I decided that I would start perfecting my playing technique, really focusing on it and doing something different. So I'm sort of musically body doubling with somebody at the moment, and we've challenged ourselves to learn the classic Master of Puppets by Metallica. And it is brilliant in terms of technique and everything. So anybody who's a guitar player who's listening to this will know that to build speed, when you're picking, you go alternate picking, down, up, down, up, down, up, gives you the speed and precision. Fantastic. Only this band decide that they're going to play it all downstrokes, which means you've got to hit the string down the whole time. And I've discovered that I'm starting to get forearms like a butcher because it's that intensive. And I'm struggling to feel now from my elbows down with playing this song. So I don't know if that's a sign of getting better or if I'm not doing it right. But this weekend is the big reveal. I was telling Sierra, I've put the dogs through hell listening to all of the bum notes and everything. So this weekend is the grand reveal to the dogs of my version of Master of Puppets. So wish me luck, girls.
Well, good
Janine, I
luck.
really
I
do.
want to hear it too. Can I have part of the grand reveal?
I'll see what the dog's reaction is first, then I might reveal it on the next podcast.
Sounds
We'll do
fair.
a reaction video to it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. What about
The-
you, Michelle?
and you know, forearms of passion. That's what those are, right?
Yes.
I love this idea that you guys talk about the crack. I have some Irish roots and I still haven't heard of this, so it tells me that I need to delve a little bit deeper into my ethnic history here. But for myself, uh, I had some quintessential Canadian experience just 2 or 3 weekends ago, going skating on the Rideau Canal, the world's biggest skating rink, and I was there with my cousin and then my best friend, her family, and her partner's best friend and his son. And what I loved was just being part of this beautiful outdoor scenic Canadian tapestry. There's people from all walks of life, different parts of the world, and everyone's smiling. Some people know how to skate very well, others don't, and it's their very first time. But it doesn't matter. Everyone's happy, it's smiling, it's sunny but cold, and yet, we all persevered and enjoyed ourselves in the winter. And what I found really fascinating too was within the group I was participating, uh, we sort of naturally just split off into the women and then the men started skating together, just kind of had our own little female bonding time. And we were pushing my friend's baby in one of those ice strollers. And the boys were skating way ahead of us. And when we took turns kind of pushing each other when we were tired, and it was kind of funny because one of us looked a little lazy at times, but we were having a good time, kind of like, you know, Rose on Titanic, king of the world down the ice. So yeah, I that's something I really cherish about living in Ottawa and being a Canadian, is having those kind of special moments together outdoors and nature, just appreciating where we live, with friends and family. So it was beautiful.
I love that, Michelle. You stole mine. I mean, but different experience because I was on the Canal Skateway with Sean the other day. We skated just to an appointment, and it's always that wow factor in Ottawa. And you're like, yeah, I just skated to work, skated to school, skated to the doctor. Um, I have to admit though, I felt very out of shape. Like as somebody who's like, yeah, I'm running on the treadmill, and I was dying. It's just like, oh my gosh, this thing is like is it 8 kilometers long?
Yeah, yeah. Rounded up, it's about 8 kilometers. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I comfort myself with that. And you're using muscles that are like, they're not your everyday muscles. But anyways, same thing though. It was a beautifully sunny day. It was cold. It was also very empty because it was a work day. Um, yeah, and you really experience just being present there because you can't really text. I mean, some people try to, and then it ends badly, but yeah. So I totally hear you. The canal, hopefully, I don't think we have too much longer to go with it, but hopefully make the most
Today
of it.
might be the last day, or yesterday was, if they're officially,
Really?
because it's so unseasonably warm right now.
Yes. Yes. So, yep. Well, there you go. That's the crack. Janine, any skating for you?
No, but I think it's a good tip. If I come and visit you both, then I'll have to bring some ice skates. But that's just incredible that one of your modes of transport is ice skating. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, they do say when you're Canadian, you're born with skates on your feet. So there you go. There you go.
Good
All
stuff.
right. Well, we'll segue transition into what we wanted to chat about today. But I guess just Michelle, quickly, if you can tell us like just a little bit about your background, why become a family doctor? Why go into lifestyle medicine? And then what is lifestyle medicine for those of us who have no idea or haven't heard about that term before?
So, with family medicine, I found my way there through a process of trial and error. I didn't always want to be a doctor. I was always interested in human health, and um, I was always interested in wellness and prevention and promotion. But I started as a kinesiologist after my undergraduate degree. And so I worked in exercise therapy. After that, I did a brief dabble in chiropractic college and then realized I wanted to help a bit broader of a population just based on the constraints that existed in Ontario. I felt that medicine might offer that to a greater extent. So while I was preparing for medicine, I started working in research labs. So I worked in a health psychology lab that looked at about motivations for health behaviors. And then I worked on healthcare system research for a couple years with the Department of Family Medicine at the University of Ottawa. So I had a lot of mentorship and I saw a lot of the impact that these individuals had within family medicine. And so when I picked a residency program after completing medical school, I don't know what it was, but last minute I switched my order of programs. I was ranking the programs. We get kind of sorted like, the Harry Potter hat type of thing into our residency program. So I was ranking and I picked a program that was public health and preventive medicine oriented. But this one program kept kind of nagging at me like, oh, maybe I should do that. And it was this residency program in Milwaukee that was basically a community hub. And this was a really under resourced community where it was situated. But they had a track around the the clinic building, and on the track they had outdoor exercise equipment that people could use mostly in the summer, of course. Um, but they also had this community garden where people could come and help grow things, and then they had cooking classes where you could take what you harvested from the garden, and then we would teach healthy cooking and eating for the patients, and we had exercise classes there. So all of this to say I was doing lifestyle medicine within my family medicine residency. We just didn't have a formal term for it at the time. And so fast forward, a few years, I'm out in practice and I still feel compelled towards the preventive side. We're seeing sick people on COVID and working in rural family medicine and tons of chronic disease. And it I could see how frustrating it was for the patients and the clinicians that things would get so far and almost feel irreversible and they wouldn't feel in control of their health. So I found I found this specialty called lifestyle medicine. I didn't realize that doing all of those things had a formal structure that existed based on evidence and you could become trained in it. So a couple years ago, I kind of sought that training. So, what is lifestyle medicine? So, it is a medical specialty or a medical discipline recognized in the U.S., which was where I was practicing at the time. So, it applies evidence based lifestyle interventions as its core therapy. So, your main approach to medicine is helping people with their health behaviors, and the idea is you can prevent, you can manage, you can sometimes reverse chronic disease. But not only that, you can also promote wellness. And I like to make that distinction because there's a common phrasing in medicine that health is not merely the absence of disease. So you're not just healthy because you don't have disease. So it works on both sides of that kind of sentence or equation. Um, so what's involved is we use a combination of techniques. So biological, meaning we're focused on the body; psychological, we help with cognitive processes; social, we help create social connections; and then ecological. So we help people integrate with the environment and use the environment to their advantage. And things that we focus on: whole food, plant-based nutrition, regular physical activity, restorative sleep. That's the phrasing we use. You want sleep to be restorative. And then stress management. Not my favorite term, but sometimes I like referring to that as centering practices. So things that help us center ourselves a little bit more. Avoiding consumption of harmful substances, and then fostering positive social relationships as well. So those are the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, as we call them. And so with all of that in mind, clinicians who work in this field, their job really is patient education and teaching people skills for self-management and motivation so that changes to their health can be more lasting. We don't want them to have to rely on extrinsic things if not needed, right? You want them to feel self-reliant and in control of their health.
I love that. It's so because oftentimes I think our experiences going to the doctor, um, and the first default mode is not always to recommend a lifestyle intervention. In fact, and listening to recently, I was mentioning a doctor for the LA Kings NHL team. She was saying that with lifestyle changes, um, they're so important because even things like sugar, she said, is feeding disease. And I'm sure there are studies that back that as you're talking about. This is very evidence based, which I think is where a lot of the KM part flows into it, is that you're making a lot of this knowledge that is buried in journal articles, probably rich in medical jargon that, the everyday human is not reading and doesn't know about, and therefore is limited when they could be exposed to options that they can embed in their own lives to make a huge difference. And so I guess that leads me to one of my main questions, and bringing in AI here as well. Is, in our pre chats and preparation, you had mentioned that with AI, there are breakthroughs and scientific discoveries that seem super out of reach. And now suddenly it's like, wow, we have AI. It can analyze so much data, spot patterns that maybe we could that aren't even visible to the human eye, certain connections, and suddenly maybe we have, I don't know if cure is going too far, but some sort of intervention, or way of diagnosing that just wasn't possible before. So I thought our listeners would be curious to know, are there specific breakthroughs on the horizon that you know about that could be coming, that people maybe with chronic illness can be excited about? So, yeah, if you can just talk a bit more about those near term discoveries.
And you're not wrong, Sierra, when you mention cures as well. That's the extent to which we're seeing the power of AI in some of these technologies. Um, Off the top of my head, something that's dear to my heart because it's affected family members. Uh, they have AI has been used to help with the Human Genome Project. I'm sure you guys have heard of CRISPR, or most likely have heard of that. But essentially, by completing that, it's created the opportunity for what is called targeted gene therapy. Um, and with targeted gene therapy, they have been able, or scientists have been able to, in certain settings, uh, cure things like type 1 diabetes, or even type 2 to some extent for individuals. Uh, I mean, this is a hard one to envision, but even Down syndrome, they've been able to cure that, or at least it's looking like that. These are not mainstream therapies by any stretch, but this is the type of promise that we're seeing in the near future, right? Now, AI is being used as well to detect things well in advance of what our typical systems afford. And so, there's some technologies that can be used to detect Parkinson's or Alzheimer's in 15 years before they develop. Really interesting technologies that even use voice. They analyze your voice and they're able to detect and help with diagnosis in areas that we don't have great criteria for yet. So now all of a sudden we're getting all of this data and realizing, hey, that matters. Actually, the body is this really complex system, and even these small changes are reflections of this root cause disease process. Um, we have things like Neuralink. I imagine you may have heard about Neuralink, but essentially it's a technology used for people suffering from paralysis for various reasons that allows them to output their thought. So
Yes.
uh, it uses a software called telepathy. That's what it's named, basically. But they can forecast their thoughts, which offers them such greater opportunity and deeper sense of satisfaction in that scenario. I can only imagine how frustrating that must be to not be able to communicate. And now all of a sudden, that's an offering. There's more to that. There are so many technologies now that allow, um, you know, even the creation of um, links to artificial limbs and having better control of that for people who are paralyzed. Uh, so, there's seemingly limitless possibility at this point. I haven't really seen an area where there hasn't been an advancement or breakthrough with AI. So it really is an exciting time in medicine overall. There's scary parts of that too, I'm sure, but there's hope as well.
Yeah, totally. Janine, before I dive in with a million more questions, I'm curious what's bubbling to mind for you.
Yeah, my mind's exploding again with all of, like, say, the possibilities and the connections, and I feel really sort of up with what Michelle's just explained there, because it's really using AI for good, AI for human betterment, and not sort of y- you know sort of negative things or manipulation. And this is just really, it gives me a lot of hope that if we can target the technology for things like that, the more people who do that, the better. And to be honest, it sounds like a much more valuable use of people's time to be investing and growing AI like this. And it was something that Michelle said about on the lifestyle medicine, and the sort of the psychological and the social side. I can really, I've got some thoughts forming around how that sort of connects in with sort of social learning and knowledge management to help people thrive in the world that we're living in today. So yeah, I'll percolate those thoughts some more during the conversation. Really
That's a
fascinating.
great connection. Yeah. Could really imagine a power team of KMers and lifestyle doctors who are helping facilitate connections for health. And what happens when we connect is we share knowledge, right? And even a friend of mine, she was just talking about how, like, aging parents, and that's a huge thing right now. I know my parents have been through it, with parents getting early onset Alzheimer's, dementia, and a lot of places that we turn to are not only doctors, but to others who have done it and been there, and trying to be like, how did you manage caring for aging parents, caring for kids, handling a crazy busy job, and how there's such value in that social connection that they're getting from peers going through the same thing, but might be further down the track, as well as combining that knowledge from the physician in terms of best treatment protocols and things like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think also, Sierra, maybe just like a quick sidebar, because I think if we've got people listening in from knowledge management, no, there is the still long held belief that it's about managing information and technology systems and things like that. But I think what we're really coming at it from is the ability to help people make decisions and take action in their lives to achieve and progress. And we do that by having all of that knowledge and insight. And when you think then about sort of aging people who have got all of that experience, who've got all of that insight, and combining that with the the fresh blood of the world who are very sort of digitally orientated, you know implementing lifestyle changes or lifestyle education along with AI interventions to help that person live a longer fulfilling life. To me, it's almost like a preservation and sustaining of that person's capability through their knowledge and experience, coming at it from this lifestyle approach. So it's not a tenuous link for anybody who's listening. We're not just kind of connecting two random topics here. There's a really strong connection when you look at it at the human level of capability.
And I want to add something that comes to mind when you're both speaking about the KM side. I'd appreciate that within lifestyle medicine, one of the main avenues through which it's conducted is actually what's called group medical visits or shared medical appointments. And that's actually one of my favorite parts about lifestyle medicine, is that you are creating a peer support network, and there is information sharing that's done not necessarily at the level of doctor to patient, right? But who are your peers, and what are they doing, and how can you share experiences? And that is actually, those visits are meant to facilitate that type of information transfer, as well as create bonds, right? And support networks too. But the idea is so that people can feel in control and feel valuable or strong and capable and self-determined. And like you said, even into later age, right? So I definitely see the connections forming as we're talking here between our disciplines. It's really fun.
Yeah, oh, fantastic.
The other connection that's just coming to mind as you both are talking is, I was thinking through this podcast, AI, AM linked medicine, and what makes, in service of this question, what makes us uniquely human? And I was zooming in on the embodied piece. But the other piece I'm hearing now is around agency and empowering humans to have choice, to have autonomy. And like Janine, you were saying in KM, one take on it is really to give people the best of what we know, make it useful so they can make a better decision, a calmer decision, a faster decision. And then in lifestyle medicine, how you're convening these conversations to help people do that. Also getting at power dynamics, because I can imagine sometimes in a patient doctor relationship, there can be sort of this feeling of power difference or expert syndrome versus coming together with peers could actually, I'm sure, help them also better develop questions to then bring to their doctor to get information they might not otherwise have gotten. I'm just riffing here. I don't know if that's another benefit, but
It's common. That's a common discussion amongst patients is, how to prepare for their medical appointment based on their experiences. Now I can only tell them so much, but I'm not in the same seat as them, right? So um, there is that sort of, again, beautiful peer support network that can exist. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but in the future, what we're going to see with the advances of AI and how that impacts medicine, we are going to see a lot more agency within from the patient. It used to be that physicians were the gatekeepers of all medical knowledge. That was why you came to see us. We held that knowledge. Now, much of that knowledge, if not pretty much all of it, is available. So our role right now is interpretation, guidance, how to navigate that information, how to make decisions with it. So we have tension though, because we maybe remained in the system that we give the information, we tell people what to do. And now our role is how do we facilitate their decisions? So we're moving away from this paternalistic model to the more facilitative model in medicine as well. So it's an interesting time for us because, there's a little bit of ego in that, and we got to put it aside and shift towards just kind of participation in the broader society.
Yeah, you're making me think of a quote another doctor I was speaking with just shared with me. She said, "We have a lot of knowledge, but not enough meaning. And my job as a doctor is being reframed away from, like you were saying, maybe more paternalistic to I'm actually encouraging my patients, bring all the knowledge you're getting and information from peers, from ChatGPT, from Copilot, and I'm going to sit with you and I'm going to help you make sense of what it means for you in your context." Um, so I thought that was actually a really helpful way of thinking about her role, where she's actually just embracing this is the inevitable way that it is. But there are dangers to us going, I know my husband says, like, you're do not go to Google Doctor. Like, that's helping nobody. It's just increasing your anxiety. Um, yeah. So I guess we've talked a lot about, up until this point, we've zoomed out, looking at some of the trends in AI and medicine and how it's kind of revolutionizing the field. I want to zoom in for a little bit and get more to this personalized self-management, self-monitoring piece. Because before this podcast, I did some polling of my friends, my family, and I said, if you were sitting down with a lifestyle medicine doctor, my good friend, Dr. Michelle Prentice, what would be your burning questions? Like, what would you want to know? And I asked people who are at a university age. I asked people that are near retirement. And everyone said the same thing: sleep.